Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Axel and Friends podcast. My name is Axel Blaze, back here once again discussing, well, the topics that some people talk about, the topics that some people don't talk about. And for this week, I decided to kind of revisit a topic that has been discussed on this channel before, and that's talking about Shonen Jump and its table of contents. A topic that is very controversial based on its past and the competition with sales and whatnot in terms of which is more important data. But that being said, I brought on a guest today who I've actually discussed this before on his stream through Twitch and whatnot, and actually the other day he was even commenting to me about a shared manga love that we have for a series and its attention that it's been getting. And with that being said, my guest today for this podcast is Shonen Ouji. Ouji, welcome to the podcast and welcome to the channel.
Hello, Axel, and hello, everyone. Great picking me this week because in the spirit of topics that no one talks about, I like to talk about Dr. Stone on my channel. So it's funny how this all elegantly comes together. But yes, I'm very excited to talk about the table of contents and the rankings and color pages because I was totally oblivious to it. It was always something I tried to keep in touch with, but just wasn't knowledgeable enough. And then when you were nice enough to come on Twitch and talk to me about it, I started it seeing everywhere. And then just to let everybody know, I tell him all the time, I'm like, good God, does Sakamoto Days get all the color pages? So I'm very excited for this conversation.
Yes, and I mean, like you said, you're a fan of Dr. Stone, you're a fan of numbers, I'm a fan of numbers. It's an elegant situation to be a fan of numbers and Dr. Stone and whatnot. And honestly, the story of Dr. Stone and its success this year is something that we will be discussing in this podcast because it's one of those things where I don't think people have a big enough grasp on just how successful certain series have been compared to other ones. Because obviously, you are part of the Twitter and AniTube space yourself. Obviously, a lot of people, all the discussion is around One Piece and My Hero Academia and Jujutsu Kaisen. Sometimes Dr. Stone is in the mix, sometimes Black Clover is in the mix, but really those are the series that get talked about the most because they're popular, but they don't necessarily get into that nitty-gritty with the details and the number side of things.
Yeah, right. It's weird because Twitter is the mix of the people who make the videos and then the people who just watch the videos and then the people who are kind of in the middle who talk to those people and also watch the videos. So there is sort of tunnel vision when it comes to what's popular and what isn't. Some of the things are more self-evident, like Chainsaw Man. If you tried to say Chainsaw Man is only popular because everyone talks about it, it's kind of a stretch. But something what was the series that got canceled and everyone was like, well, why is this in here when Roboco is still in there?
Phantom Seer.
Phantom Seer. Yeah, and we talked about this before. That was a great example of a lot of content creators would be like, oh, this is going to be the next big thing in Jump, and then no, it wasn't. Again, after you carefully explained to me how these things work, before we talked about it, I was like, this makes no sense. And then after we talked about it, literally, I was like, oh, well, this makes perfect sense. It didn't get color pages. It was ranking low. Look at it's direct competitors. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and that's why I made the video that I made about how Phantom Seer should have ended earlier. Partly because I got invested in it, and at that point, because I was invested, I didn't want to see it go. But two, because the numbers that it was reflecting, were of a series that was on the outs. Because I do want to stress here that it's not a great thing for a series to be in like in the last 3 slots of the table of contents.
Mm.
What's worse is to not get any promotion besides those bottom 3 placements, because that's the thing. There are several series that aren't necessarily in risk of being canceled or axed, but that have had bottom 3 placements. But they've also had color pages or top threes, or even had a cover this year. So that's the thing with Phantom Seer. It was in the magazine for like the 2021 season for like 16 or 17 issues for this year, but it was in the bottom 3 15 times. No
Yeah,
color
wow.
pages or top threes in the like the 1 or 2 times that it wasn't in the bottom 3. It was just always there. And that was also a similar case for both Cop and Dolphin and Build King. Both of those were series that were only in the bottom 3 or didn't have promotion outside of it. They weren't in the bottom 3 as much as Phantom Seer was, though. Cop and Dolphin was in the bottom 3 12 times, and Build King was in it 11 times. But yeah, Phantom Seer, compared to everything else this year so far, it was in the bottom 3 more than any other series. But a lot of people, again, like you mentioned, would just be the kind of people that are like, "Whoa, I liked Phantom Seer. Why did it get canceled?" Without looking at some of the numbers in the magazine. Um,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have sworn while it was still coming out in its later stages, if I remember correctly, I was seeing things on Twitter like Phantom Seer Volume 1 is selling out and they need to reprint it. So if that's true, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, that's actually a great example of the magazine data and the magazine rankings being more important than just sales.
yep. So you are correct. Phantom Seer towards the beginning was getting reprints ordered. But there is a flip side to that coin, where the original printing numbers, yes, were like short prints for the volumes, but then they overprinted them. And
Uh,
they were not selling to the print numbers that they put out there. Like they were only selling like half of the volumes that they were putting out in the wild. So I don't know if that was just a result of them having some overconfidence and then kind of regretting it and then feeling whichever way for Phantom Seer. But yeah, it did have the reprints, but then the reprints weren't bought. At least not
right.
enough to recoup, what was printed out there. Um,
Hmm.
so, and it, yes, in comparison to other series like Me and Roboco or Magu-chan, or especially High School Family, it was selling better than those series. But in terms of the magazine performance, those series were better performing than Phantom Seer was.
Hmm.
Like they by well, at least in terms of like Roboco and even Magu-chan, by a larger margin than you would think. Like
Right.
Magu and Roboco aren't just a flash in the pan kind of thing. They they pull in the numbers. As crazy as that is to say, like they do pull in the numbers.
Well, Roboco is like probably it's probably on the other extreme of this, where like Phantom Seer, everyone like here loved it and was shocked when it left, and then with Roboco, I'd say like 9 people out of 10 despise that it even exists, and yet somehow it is still in the magazine, and I don't think it's going anywhere soon. Question
No.
mark?
It shouldn't be going anywhere soon. Well, I mean,
Maybe.
it there's no at this time, I wouldn't say that it's going to
Yeah.
be going anywhere anytime soon. Um, just because, uh, losing my train of thought. Like Japan loves gag series way
Hmm.
more than the West. Gags in general are a bigger part of the culture there, compared to like here in the States. I mean, that's why
Right.
you see as often as you do, like series or not sorry. That's why you see like with like television shows and whatnot, you see such a big comedy presence. The game shows that they have such a big comedy presence. Um, and I think it's one of those things where in Japan, they do that as a means of uh, getting over the mundane kind of like very work heavy like vibe that they have in
Right.
Japan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, because I like, especially compared to like the states here, like they have like usually a 6 day either work week or school week, and that's kind of crazy to think about. Like kids going to school like 6 days out of the week instead of five, like it is in other parts of the world. But
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
kind of how it is. Um, and as I was talking here, I was realizing, oh, my data was wrong for certain things. I've been like
Uh-oh.
mindlessly fixing it here, and while we were talking. But yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's not, at least for now. I would say that Roboco does not have, is not at risk of being axed yet. That's not to say that it's perfect, and that there's like absolutely zero chance that it will get axed, but we'll definitely get into that more once we actually get into the discussion on the numbers and whatnot.
Hmm.
But needless to say, it's one of those series where like it gets enough popularity in the magazine that it's compared to like Phantom Seer. The only other series that I would say was in a semi-similar position to Phantom Seer, but the manga sales were covering for it, was Ayakashi Triangle. Um, and that's one of those things where like Ayakashi Triangle, um, is, in terms of the series that are still running in Jump, it's the one series that has the most bottom three placements out of anything still running.
Yeah.
Um, but it has had 3 color pages. I will say that in comparison to
Hmm.
Phantom Seer, but its sales were also a lot better than Phantom Seer's, a lot better. Um, and that's definitely, I would definitely say part of it is one because it's by a veteran author, so that does get some pull. Not for
Okay.
everybody, obviously, because Cop and Dolphin was also by a veteran author, and so was
Yeah, right.
Build King. But
Hmm.
two, it's also an ecchi series, and that pulls in fans, and it pulls
Yeah,
in a
right. So
lot of fans.
so nothing is to take away from this, nothing is determinative on its own. It's like one big uh, balance test, and you have to kind of
Correct.
figure out, especially when you're like the retailers and you're deciding, do I want to uh, get more orders of this? And you're trying to figure out, well, what's my confidence in this? There's factors. There's nothing like there's no one thing.
Yep, and that's also the case for Shueisha itself. Um,
Hmm.
the manga sales ultimately are king. I will say that,
Okay.
but magazine popularity does have a factor to play. And we definitely have seen that, especially in when, seeing other series like Phantom Seer and Cop and Dolphin leaving the magazine. Um, it's just that there were other series that were more popular than it. They might have been pulling similar sales numbers or maybe a little bit worse, but they were faring better with like the popularity polls and whatnot for the magazine itself. Um,
Okay.
so that's just kind of how it is. But that being said, we can definitely start jumping into the numbers itself, or at
All right.
least like a breakdown of what I've got here. So for judging these different series, I gave every series a point if it had a lead color page, if it had a top 3 placement, or if it had a color page. I decided to give them out equally. I didn't want to weight anything because I felt that would be weird, especially since like not everything is always in one position or whatnot. But everything is a thing of promotion. So that's why I gave everything a point. And I'll get into bottom 3 stuff a little bit later and like show how that kind of adjusts for things. But for now, I'm just going to go through the total points. So
Hold on, real quick. It was color page, top 3 placement, and then what was the other thing?
so the lead color page / cover.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So believe it or not, in terms of pure points, not accounting for, like issues that it wasn't in or anything else, the top earning series so far this year is Dr. Stone with
That's what I
25
like to hear.
points. Yes.
Nice.
So Dr. Stone just putting in the work. And it wasn't like it was in every issue this year. It did have, I believe, from what I saw, 2 weeks that it wasn't in the magazine. But otherwise, yeah, Dr. Stone beat out the other top 3 series by a single point. And yes, so Dr. Stone was only on break 2 issues out of the 32 this year. So to have 25 points out of 32 issues is pretty great. After Dr. Stone, there was a tie for second place, and that was between One Piece and My Hero Academia with 24 points apiece. JJK was in fourth with 23. And here is where the drop happens. And it's kind of a similar thing you'll see with some of the other metrics as well. After JJK, in 5th place was Mashal. And Mashal had 14 points this year. So between JJK and Mashal, a 9-point difference. After Mashal in 6th is actually Elusive Samurai at 12 points. And it's on top of that, Elusive Samurai's sales have been phenomenal for a new series.
Yeah, right.
So it's got both the magazine popularity down and the sales popularity down. So it's covering both bases there. In 8th place is Black Clover with 10 points. Mission Yozakura Family is in 9th place with 8 points. In 10th is another tie, and that is between Sakamoto Days and Blue Box with 7 points apiece. In 11th place, yet another tie, and this one's a 3-way tie, and that is between Undead Unluck, Me and Roboco, and Witch Watch with 6 points. Magu-chan comes in 14th with 5. Ayakashi Triangle and Red Hood, and I've got a little bit of an asterisk for Red Hood here, are tied for 15th with 3 points. And then High School Family, Candy Flurry, and Neru are tied for 17th with 2 points apiece. Although, once again, Candy Flurry and Neru have an asterisk here.
Okay.
And I want to say, for asterisks, the reason why I say that is with any new series, when it debuts, it is guaranteed a cover with lead color pages and then a color page in its second issue. So by that metric, every series in its debut year will always have 2 points. So the same thing would be said for like ITLC, Kowloon's Ball Parade, and I would have said Build King, but that came out last year, so that wouldn't have factored into this year.
Hmm.
But every new series is guaranteed two. I put a bit of an asterisk with Red Hood because one of its most recent chapters was technically in like the first three series that wasn't a lead color page or a color page series, so technically a top three series. Um, but you could go kind of either way with a different series because of how new it is. But
Okay.
still thought it was worth mentioning. But yeah, uh, as you heard, like there's a really big gap when it comes to the top four series compared to like the fifth through 10th place series, and that's a 9 point gap in between them. So, any thoughts on that?
Um, I kind of want to talk about Black Clover because um, Black Clover and MHA are like notoriously always compared to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but based on this ranking, like MHA seems way more popular.
You would definitely. Well, I mean, it's definitely the case. I
Yeah.
mean, My Hero Academia in general is a multi-channel series, brings in
Hmm.
more than Black Clover does.
Yeah,
Um,
without a doubt.
Not to say that Black Clover doesn't bring in a lot of multi-channel revenue, because it is a top 20 series of the year in that regard. Um, which I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit for that. Um, that it brings in as much as it does. Now that number will ultimately drop for next year just because the anime is currently over for the time being. But that movie that's going to come out is another source of multi-channel revenue that it will eventually get. Um, so it is still good, and by all means, to be a top 10 series is a good thing. Like it's perfectly fine to be average ranking, and I know there are some people that will be upset by like hearing, oh, like average ranking, but that is the case. Like it is perfectly fine to be average, and that's a good thing. It's not bad. Like there are other series that wish it could be as good as Black Clover in terms of the multi-channel revenue sales that it gets. So,
Right.
but it's very symbolic considering obviously the most recent Jump issue that we had, which was a group cover where Black Clover was not part of that flag grab at the bottom of the magazine. That flag grab was between the top four point scoring series of Dr. Stone, One Piece, MHA, and JJK.
Hmm.
Asta was sitting back, just kind of watching. Obviously, not as bad as Candy Flurry, who just got put in the top right corner. It's just like, hey, it's
Yeah.
kind of here, but like that cover page really was like good in terms of symbolism, or not symbolism, but like a good metaphor for like just how
Reflect.
well series are doing compared to other ones.
Yeah. Um,
Because yeah, the not so popular ones or the not so popular slash newer ones were getting shoved towards the back and were getting smaller and smaller.
right. Um, if I had to like kind of guess why, I think part of it would be one, the hype has dipped, not like drastically, but it has dipped for Black Clover since the earlier part of the Spade Kingdom stuff. At
Mm-hmm.
least if you ask me. So the hype isn't like what it was at the front end of this arc. And then I know you said something about uh, breaks for the series and whether or not it had an influence in this, but I feel like Black Clover had a lot of breaks this year.
It did. Um, and that's another thing where I'm kind of realizing I probably have the wrong number for a
Okay.
percentage in terms of like what or how many breaks it had. But yes, it did have uh, a number, especially of more recent breaks compared to other series.
Yeah.
Not as many. obviously as One Piece or JJK, which I do have more accurate numbers for them. So, uh, One Piece was in 24 issues out of the 32 this year, and JJK
Mhm.
was in 25. So in terms of the long running series, they had the most breaks out of everybody else. Um,
Right.
Whereas series like Elusive Samurai and newer obviously have less chapters because they came out during this year,
Hmm.
which is why some of the numbers for them are as crazy as they are. The fact that Elusive Samurai has 12 points this year is crazy. The fact that it has 12 points out of 27 issues is a big deal.
Hmm.
And even Blue Box, the fact that it has seven points out of 16 is a very big deal. Um, and I will definitely get to, like I said, the percentages on that soon. But like it's crazy to see like just how successful these new series have been, especially compared to some of older ones, and like comparing it to like what other series have performed like in the past. The fact that like you have series that are like nipping on the heels of series like Mission Yozakura Family, Black Clover, that's really big. Obviously though they're not quite close yet to the level of the top 4, but they're getting there. Um, but obviously, the other breakout for sure, at least within the last year, would definitely be Mashal, considering that it is based on the metrics that I've shared, the fifth ranking series with 14 points. Like it
Hmm.
just goes to show that like Japan is really digging. They're really digging Mashal right now. They are definitely fans of it. Um,
Which is ironic because the author came out recently and said it's like more than halfway done.
yes, which don't get me wrong, I'm conflicted on that personally. Like it's one of those things where it's just like, oh man, like Mashal is really enjoyable, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I don't want a series necessarily overstaying its welcome if the author is able to create a competent story in less amount of time. Like we are definitely
Right.
in a very different time compared to where we used to be. And I mean, honestly, One Piece is a relic of that time where the goal of any shonen series was to just go as long as you could for as long as
Right.
possible. Just adding plot and adding plot and adding plots, and by all means, that could potentially be what happens even to Black Clover, depending on Tabata's willingness and what Jump wants to do. But we're really past that point in Shonen Jump of seeing a series that will get to 1,000 chapters or more. Like, I mean, not
Right.
even necessarily that, but like getting to even the heights of like Bleach or Naruto with like 700 chapters. Like that's just not a thing anymore. Like these authors, they have for the most part a set plan on how far they want to go, but they're not trying to just go for the infinite anymore. They've got a plan and they're trying to end it, and I think that's a good thing. Um, Whether or not, again, Mashal ends as soon as they're kind of expecting. I'm in support, and I will support whatever they decide to do. But I would be lying if I said that wouldn't be a shame to see it end at its peak. But it very well could. I mean, the same thing happened to Demon Slayer when you think about it. Like Demon Slayer's sales just skyrocketed, like right as it was getting into its final arc,
Hmm.
which I think a lot
Yeah,
of
I think
people were sad. But, oh, I cut you off. Go ahead.
no, no, you're good. I was just gonna say I think Demon Slayer is the perfect example of like ended exactly where it needed to. I didn't really have any questions when it ended. I didn't feel like they set anything up just to like leave it unanswered. I thought it was perfect. Despite my personal gripes with the exact execution of the ending, I thought generally I was satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you there. And it's honestly kind of crazy to think of the massive sales spike that it had. Um, and this might be a reach on my side, but like I question to a degree whether Jujutsu Kaisen can actually match how much uh Demon Slayer hits. Like I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely wonder that, because like don't get me wrong, they Japan really loves Jujutsu Kaisen. The West really loves Jujutsu Kaisen, or not? Yes, Jujutsu Kaisen. But Demon Slayer was just lightning in a bottle. Like the fact that
Yeah, it
Demon
really
Slayer
was.
has sold over 150 million copies of its manga, the fact that Mugen Train was like Japan's top selling animated movie of all time. I mean, given that the pandemic definitely played a part in that, and how Japan just wanted a sense of normalcy, so they just kept going to see Demon Slayer in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Jujutsu Kaisen can necessarily hit those same numbers. It's possible, and it's still ongoing. Um, but we're just gonna have to kind of wait and see. Like as it is right now, it is sitting at about 50 million in sales, so it is a third of the way there.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's definitely possible, but like it's definitely gonna be more of a wait for it to see it get to anywhere similar kind of numbers. It's not gonna be like Demon Slayer that sold through all that manga within the span of like 3 years.
Well, I said in a recent video, so I did a video on the future of the Doctor Stone anime because for so long people have been saying like, "Oh my God, look at the Doctor Stone manga! It's doing like insane." Um, so I made a video basically saying, "Well, wouldn't it be great if the anime to do this successful? Not necessarily like making money, but like get it as popular as I would like to see it." Which, if you ask me, I think it should be just as popular as JJK Demon Slayer. I think it can get there. It's got the potential. Not like does it deserve to be? Does it have the potential? I think so. And so what I was saying was, it's like, okay, so how do you get these series to these insane heights of popularity? And with Demon Slayer, it was easy. Um, if you were paying attention to it as it was airing, it was obvious that the infamous episode 19 was a huge factor because um, I remember for the longest time, like I had caught up to Demon Slayer when it was already like, I don't know, 14 episodes in, and everyone kept saying, "Oh, it's okay, but it's basic. It's all right, but I'm not really in love." And then
Mm-hmm.
episode 19 hit with that one scene with the ridiculous animation. And the night it came out, it exploded on Twitter. Like, exploded. And so I think when you get into JJK, um, it didn't really have that kind of moment where like it exploded on Twitter. It had a bunch of moments similar to that, but there was nothing in this first season of JJK that could be compared to the infamous episode 19 of Demon Slayer. But I will say, like Demon Slayer, um, who's ever running the money for these things had a similar level of confidence because Demon Slayer and JJK both got movie announcements after just one season. I think that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And in terms of Jujutsu Kaisen had like the perfect source material by converting Volume Zero into a movie. Like that
Yeah.
was the perfect play for it. Um, the the big thing too is that Japan does love cultural things, and by all means, like Demon Slayer had that in spades since it was like a historical kind of. I shouldn't say historical, but it was a period piece.
Yeah.
compared to like other series, and like Japan loves samurais and whatnot. Not that love is necessarily shared for all series respectively. This is a very much a tangent, but like Weekly Shonen magazine had a series called Kanji Banka, which was like a historical samurai period kind of piece, but like it did not do well whatsoever in terms of sales. Like it stuck
Okay.
around in the magazine for quite a bit, but it just goes to show that, like, again, Demon Slayer just had all of the right materials just
Mhm.
to be like lightning in a bottle and perform as well as it did. And by all means, Ufotable just worked their magic on it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it goes to show that like with a good anime production, like, well, a good anime production and then a break for new like material, how much people are clamoring to like see more in the meantime.
Right.
Because Demon Slayer left off on a cliffhanger, like right leading into Mugen Train, and we knew it was going to have a movie. Um, but then it got delayed because of COVID, and even with COVID, um, manga buying became such a big thing, um, like super big, and that played a part in it too. Like people were just like, all right, well, I got time to read, I'm just gonna buy all of Demon Slayer, and they did
Hmm.
in droves. Um, so I do think that Jujutsu Kaisen could reach those same heights, but obviously, as we're seeing so far, it's just gonna take longer to get there. That's just kind
Yeah,
of how it
right, for
is.
sure.
And on top of that too, there are potentially people that are just gonna wait to watch more of the anime, because we know like the movie is coming out, and we know that like they'll probably get a season 2 probably next year, if I had to guess. Um, with Demon Slayer, because of how much things got pushed back, I know that's unfortunate, and um, they would be foolish not to finish out the anime, but properly, not giving it like a Promise Neverland treatment where it's just like, well, the manga is over, so we'll just rush the anime into ending, and that way it ends.
Yeah.
um, which a lot of people don't get that either, that like that anime won't always get that love because of when the manga ends. There are so many series out there that will never be finished because the manga ended well before the anime did, and the studios didn't want to, create something that's not running right now to like cause hype back and forth between the two. Um,
Right. Right, exactly.
like it's you occasionally do get people that go back and create more stuff for like older series. I mean, obviously Fruits Basket was a perfect example of that, where they decided to reboot it. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, like for the for the manga that ends, they don't necessarily get an anime conclusion. Some do, but not all of them do. Especially now, given the fact that like we get these 12 to 24 episode anime seasons. We don't get a long running anime in the form of One Piece or, well, other things that air on Toei. Let's be honest, because
Right.
that's what Toei does, is they just do long running stuff. But
Literally.
yeah, that's just kind of how it is. Um,
While we're still on the topic of movies, I just want to quickly get your opinion. So it is related because, so Dr. Stone, number one on your ranking system on great manga sales, obviously a very popular series. Um, Solid anime, not like the most wild anime, but very solid. I mean, like whenever it's airing, like whenever there's a current season, it's always like a featured season, and it's always like, at least from what I see, is like one of the most popular seasons while it's airing. What are the odds, do you think, it gets a movie? Like, I personally think the Byakuya reboot would make a perfect movie because it would be canon enough that, like, it kind of relates, but, like, because it's technically has been disclaimed as alternate timeline, like, they wouldn't have to worry about, oh, well, is this, is it blah, blah, blah. Basically, what do you think the odds are of Dr. Stone getting either a Byakuya reboot movie or just a movie in general?
Hmm. It's a very good question. I think it could get a movie. Just because it is doing well enough. I mean, obviously, like Black Clover is just a couple million in terms of manga sales, like ahead compared to Doctor Stone, and with how much attention Doctor Stone has been getting in the magazine this year, like the popularity is there enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it would just kind of depend on what they want to do. I feel like they would be it would be more likely for them to make a just a movie, like an original movie for Doctor Stone, than they
Okay, that makes
would
sense.
the Byakuya reboot. Um, just because like we've already seen parts of Byakuya's story in like the anime and the manga itself, so kind
Sure.
of rehashing that would be, I don't know if that
Well,
is as smart of a move.
the other thing too is like the Byakuya reboot storyline. Without giving any spoilers, doesn't really have a big bad,
Correct.
so it would be very hard to market. Like
Absolutely.
even like just look at the way they marketed the reboot. Like if you ask most Doctor Stone fans, they're like, "Wait, this is a spinoff? What?"
Yep. And in the grand scheme of things, they're not as relevant to the current plot
Right,
as like the characters from like volume 0 for Jujutsu Kaisen are, because like there
right,
are a lot
exactly.
of relevant characters in that appear in the main series.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, they had they actually extended season 2 more, had we actually gotten stuff with Ryusui and whatnot, we could have potentially made a movie out of Treasure Island. That
Okay.
that I think could have been a movie if they wanted to incorporate like actual like canon stuff, but obviously they didn't at this point. So like I'm fine, more than fine seeing it in just regular anime form. But I think at this point it is safer to assume that if Doctor Stone were to have a movie, it would be an original movie like Black Clover is doing,
Okay.
rather than adapting like the Byakuya reboot or something else from the plot. Because at this point, the only thing that I think could have made it into a movie from the main plot would have been Treasure Island, and just based on episode structure and whatnot, at this point, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, right. Like at this point, season three is pretty easily looking like it's going to be exploration and then Treasure Island.
Yep, that would definitely be my guess as well at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it is
All
what it
right.
is. I do think
That
it'll
was my question.
sounds good. I think it's possible that it could get a movie, but we'll just have to wait and see in that regard. Um, so the next thing that I wanted to cover then was actual percentages. So I already kind of leaned into this a little bit already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing to just talk about the point scoring. It's another thing to actually look at how those points measure up to how many times those points measured up to how many actual issues they were in. So, in terms of percentages, I divided the amount of points that they had by the amount of issues that they were in for Jump this year. And a lot of the numbers and placements are very similar, but there are some differences. So, um, there is a little bit of moving up and down, so I'll get into that. But the sitting at the top was One Piece, because despite the amount of breaks and whatnot that it had, every single issue that it was in, it either had the lead color pages, or it was in the top three. It didn't have any color pages, like regular, like in the magazine color pages, but it was in the top three or had the lead color pages every single time, and it was the only series that made it to 100%. Um, After that is Jujutsu Kaisen in the second place spot, and that had a 92%, for the amount of times like it had points compared to the issues. Dr. Stone was in third with 83%. My Hero Academia had 77%. And then once again, we dropped down. In sixth place is Elusive Samurai with 44%. Tied for seventh place, and I know this is going to sound weird, but it's going to be Mashal and Blue Box, also with 44%. I rounded up the decimal points, and Elusive Samurai was just a smidgen better than Mashal and Blue Box. In ninth place was Black Clover with 33%. 10th place was Mission Yozakura Family with 25%. Witch Watch was in 11th with 24%. Sakamoto Days is in 12th with 22%. Undead Unluck is in 13th with 19%. Tied with Roboco, also with 19%. 15th is Magu-chan with 16%. I just realized I have been giving the wrong numbers here in terms of placement.
No.
In terms of like placing. Because I
Yeah,
was
right.
looking at the wrong side here. So I was really close though. So you had Magu-chan next, like I said, with 16%. Candy Flurry had 13%, but I've got an asterisk there. Ayakashi Triangle has 10%, and High School Family has 6%. And I did not count Red Hood and Neru because they're under 10 chapters, so their percentages are very skewed in comparison, since that's how numbers work. But yeah, there are definitely some movers and shakers with the percentages here, with especially Blue Box moving up 4 places compared to what it was for just points.
Right.
But yeah, the fact that One Piece had a point every time that was in the magazine is crazy in and of itself. And Jujutsu Kaisen was really close. It was only like 1 or 2 issues where it didn't have like a top 3 color page or cover page, but it was up there. Are there any other numbers that kind of surprise you from the list that I kind of gave?
Not surprised, but I will give a couple thoughts. I think the reason why Dr. Stone doesn't rank higher when it comes to the percentages is because um, it only had 2 breaks, and I feel like that must be like a record high for Dr. Stone. Like I feel like Dr. Stone never takes breaks, even with like all the crazy science stuff that Inagaki like has to look up and like has to talk to the consultant. I feel like he never takes breaks. So if he hadn't taken 2 of those breaks, or excuse me, other way around, if he had taken more breaks, I feel like maybe he would have been Dr. Stone would have been like number 2, maybe number 1. I think the fact that it like almost never takes breaks factors into the fact that like it wasn't closer to like 90% or 100%.
Which is definitely the case for like a lot of series in general. Like the fact of the
Mm-hmm.
matter is there were 32 issues of Jump so far this year, and we are counting down. There's only I want to say around 15 or so issues of Jump left for the year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like certain series will not be caught up to like the top 4 are not going to be caught by anything else.
No,
there's nothing else that is going to break that top 4.
not even
But
close.
that's the thing, is that there are a lot of series that like they have been in every single issue so far this year, but the top 3 have been dominated by those top 4 series, and the covers are also dominated by some of those top series, which I'll get into that too. Um, so and the color pages go to pretty much anybody. So there's a lot of blank space that you just don't get points for, and that is definitely the case for a lot of these series. Um, I do. Oh, I you said you had other points. I think you said as well, correct?
Yeah, so not any surprises. Um, I think the only thing I'm really concerned about is Undead Unluck because I don't think it ranks in the top three that often, um, if at all, really. Um, I feel like it does get placed in the lead color pages a fair bit, um, and it does get some color pages, but not like a ton. Especially considering like how enjoyable it is. I feel like it should be more popular, but yeah, that is like my baby that I'm like protecting. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is the one because like Elusive Samurai, I would probably say the same thing if there weren't so many numbers in its favor. Like the fact that it like numbers wise is doing great, I'm not really concerned for it, but that is also my baby. But
Mm-hmm.
like that's my baby that like is the A plus student, is varsity basketball. Like I don't have to worry about that one. This is my baby that like has a lot of potential, but doesn't seem to be reaching it quite as much as it should.
Mm-hmm. No, by all means, while there is some room for concern with Undead Unluck in terms of magazine popularity, its sales numbers are decent enough. Like each
Mm-hmm.
volume does sell like 50,000 copies plus, so that is good for a series that is a year old. By all means, it's not obviously reaching the same numbers as like Mashal or any of
Mm-hmm.
the other like top 10 series. Um, but yeah, like it's still doing decently enough. Um, so I wouldn't say there's room for concern just quite yet. There are some sacrifices that can kind of line up before it, but it's not it's not like it's completely out of the realm of danger for this year. I will say that
Yeah.
much. Um, what was I going to say? Oh, in terms of the some of the metrics here. I will say I think you've got the lead color pages and the colors a little bit mixed up here with it because lead color
Okay.
pages are the cover series. I will say so like whatever the cover series is gets the lead color pages, and Undead Unluck has only been on the cover once this year. Um,
Really?
yes, it has only been on the
Oh
cover
wow.
once. Both it and Mashal had anniversary covers, and that was the only cover that Undead Unluck had for this year. Mashal had another cover besides its anniversary one, but Undead Unluck only had one cover. It did make the top three once, but otherwise, all of its other points are from color pages, and it had like four mid magazine color pages for this year so far.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. So, which and that is a very decent number to have
Mm-hmm.
four color pages.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
there are let's see here, seven series that beat it out in terms of more color pages this year, but that is still a good number. Um, yeah, I would say in terms of percentages and whatnot, and as well as like tied into sales, uh, Magu-chan is definitely in danger. High School Family is also potentially in danger, and Candy Flurry is most definitely getting axed. Candy Flurry is
Yeah.
it's gone because in terms of points, the only points that Candy Flurry has gotten so far this year have been its guaranteed points for being a newbie series. Otherwise, Candy Flurry has been in the bottom three the same amount of times that Ayakashi Triangle has been in all year. Like it's been in
Mm-hmm.
the bottom three six times. So I do apologize for anyone that is a Candy Flurry fan, but it's gone, and its sales for Volume One were not enough to save it. We are at a very cutthroat point again in Shonen Jump where there are very few sacrificial series left. Everything else has been around for a good amount of time or is popular enough. So
Yeah.
it's not like last year when we had a mass exodus of series.
Yeah, I was gonna say like we just got our two new series. I was kind of thinking like, okay, something's got to go soon.
Yeah, we have about 4 or 5 issues before the next block comes out because we get new series about every 10 issues or so.
Hmm.
So, um, but yeah, we can definitely break down at least like what had the most of certain things, in terms of like covers, top threes, and colors. Um, and it is different. Like the top one for each one is different, so it's not reflective of like the top ranking. It's actually very different across the board. Um,
Okay.
so One Piece, being the flagship series that it is, it did have the most covers out of every
Hmm.
series. And for every issue except for this one, anytime that there was a group cover page, One Piece has had the lead colors. Dr. Stone changed that trend with this latest issue because it was another group cover, but Dr. Stone had the lead color pages. And that actually put Dr. Stone in second place. Dr. Stone has had 5 covers slash lead color pages this year, which is crazy. Like,
Yeah, I did get a lot of them.
yeah, because in terms of covers, obviously, like I said before, new series gets a cover. They're guaranteed it, and we get between 8 and 12 new series a year. So that's already like a quarter of the covers claimed. You've got One Piece, which is a juggernaut. You've got group covers. So the fact that Doctor Stone managed to get the cover and or lead color pages 5 times is a very big deal. Um,
Well, I think part of it was Dr. Stone had so much going on. Like, I'm trying to think of like all the like color pages and anything else I can think of. I know it got one when season two started, but I think that missed the cut. Um, there was also the second anniversary. I believe that got a color page, or not the second anniversary. Excuse me. The I believe it was the fourth anniversary that had the second anniversary poll.
mhm,
I don't think that was a lead color page, but that was definitely a color page. I
mhm.
remember that. Um, and then you also had like all the stuff that went on in the actual story
With
that
the
warranted
climax of the
color
most recent
pages.
arc, yeah.
Yeah, like I know Suika had to have gotten at least one or two of her own color pages.
Hmm. So yeah, no, Doctor Stone was definitely a big deal this year. So it definitely warranted as many as it got.
Hmm.
Um, Past Doctor Stone, My Hero Academia was third, and it had 3 covers slash lead color pages. There was a 4-way tie in terms of 2, where you had Mashal, Black Clover, Elusive Samurai, and Blue Box. Now, Elusive Samurai and Blue Box, again, having an asterisk because they were new series, so they were guaranteed a cover page. But the fact that they
Hmm.
got one so close to their first chapters was insane. Like Elusive Samurai was already one thing, getting a lead or getting a cover within like 15, 16 chapters, and then Blue Box beat that. So
Hmm.
it just going to show once again that like there is a lot of strength in new series. Like
Yeah.
they are definitely some movers and shakers. Um, After that, Jujutsu Kaisen, Undead Unluck, Sakamoto Days, and Mission Yozakura Family each had one cover page. Sakamoto and Mission Yozakura kind of being big deals because Mission Yozakura Family did not get a cover page for its 1 year anniversary, but Sakamoto Days did beat its 1 year anniversary and actually got a second cover page exactly 1 chapter before Jujutsu Kaisen hit that same milestone. So Sakamoto proving supremacy over Jujutsu Kaisen in one metric. So fantastic.
Wow.
And then Witch Watch, Neru, Candy Flurry, and Red Hood all had their one guaranteed cover. Going into top 3 placements, Jujutsu Kaisen crushed it. Jujutsu
Hmm.
Kaisen was in the top 3 21 times out of its 23 points. One Piece came in second with 18, tying My Hero Academia with 18. Dr. Stone had 16. And then, again, this is where we see the major drop and where
Hmm.
we see the drop in the rankings. Mashal was next with 6 points with top threes. So it was in the top 3 a total of 10 times less than Dr. Stone, which is a big gap. Black Clover and Elusive Samurai had 5 top 3 placement. Blue Box had 3 again. Crazy for a new series and a rom-com at that. And then Magu-chan, Undead Unluck, Sakamoto Days, Roboco, and my asterisk of Red Hood all had 1 top 3 of their own. And then, again, the one metric that is very different compared to the regular ranking was color pages. So the one series that had the most color pages out of anybody else was Mission Yozakura Family with 7. Mashal had 6. Sakamoto Days, Me and Roboco, Elusive Samurai, and Witch Watch all had 5 color pages. So again, the reason why you're seeing Sakamoto Days as many times as you did is because it had 5 color pages. Dr. Stone, Magu-chan, and Undead Unluck had 4. Ayakashi Triangle, My Hero Academia, and Black Clover had 3. High School Family and Blue Box had 2. JJK had 1. Candy Flurry, Red Hood, and Neru had their guaranteed ones, and then One Piece had 0 color pages this year so far, because every single time it was in the magazine, it either had the cover or was in the top 3. So,
okay. I'm like, wait a minute, no, but yeah, that makes sense.
And that's the funny thing is that it's like, it doesn't matter if you don't have a color page if you have the lead color page or a top 3 placement, and that's what One Piece had every single time, which is crazy. But yeah, Mission Yozakura Family is just the king of color pages for this year, considering it had 7. That is a lot of color pages, and they're well warranted. Like, every color page for Mission Yozakura Family has been a delight in one way or another, with the characters or the experimental art styles for certain ones. Like, it's a delight to see. Compared to Mashal, where like the color pages are more jokes because it's Mashal every time. Yeah. But I love Sakamoto Days' color pages. They are so good. I love them so much. But I also love Sakamoto Days so much. Like, it is one of the manga I am always pushing the agenda for. Like I had in my last podcast episode, which you can totally view on this channel. For anyone that has made it over an hour into this podcast. Which, congratulations if you made it this far. Good for you. Yay. Thank you for being here. Anyway. Yeah, that's really the breakdown, though, of where all the points went. So it's honestly the crazy thing, like I mentioned before, with the whole like axing series that aren't doing well. Outside of Candy Flurry, like every other series lately has been doing decently. Like every series for the most part has gotten a color page or a top 3. So it's gonna suck that we have to cut something that's not doing badly. Like, when we've had that leading up to this point. Like I mentioned before, Phantom Seer, Cop and Dolphin, Build King, ITLC, Kowloon's Ball Parade, all series that, with the exception of ITLC and Kowloon's Ball Parade having their guaranteed points, none of those series like had any indication of color pages top 3 anything. So when it was their time to be axed, at least from my perspective, since I came up, like I keep up with these metrics, I wasn't surprised. But right now, we're going to be losing stuff that has not been doing badly. Like, sure, you could say like High School Family, for instance, since it's only had 2 points this entire year, makes sense. But the fact that it recently had a color page, that's usually not the sign of something that's doing bad if it's got a color page lately. So I just... It's crazy. It's crazy that we are back. I mean, it was inevitable that we would get back to this point. because we had the mass exodus year that we had last year, but like it's going to be unfortunate to see certain things go at this point.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the timing of things, this I feel like this is like one of the best times to be like actively engaged with Jump. Like there's rarely anything that I hate.
Mm-hmm.
Like me personally, the only things that have just been like really off-putting to me are Build King and then Roboco. Like Roboco, like if you like it, that's fine.
Which I do.
Um, yeah, like
I
it's
do.
fine. It's just not for me. Like I read one chapter and I was like, not for me. Build King, less so if you like it. Like again, everyone likes different things, but with Build King, I was really like, really, like people like this.
Well, if you liked
Other than
Build
that,
King, you were wrong. I will say that,
yeah, okay.
because Toriko is the superior series by that author by leaps and bounds. Like,
I was gonna say what I saw of Build King, I was just like, this just seems like boring, like mediocre.
yeah, it was literally the meme of Mom, I want Toriko, and we have Toriko at home, and Toriko at home was Build King. That was what it was, because it was a copy paste of Toriko, but worse, with characters that weren't as good, like just not good. And I will
Mhm.
say on Roboco's side of things, it is a very hit or miss series in terms of like from
Yeah,
chapter to chapter. There are a lot of chapters that I love depending on the references that are made. Like there was an entire episode pretty much dedicated to Yu Yu Hakusho, and it was great. There was another chapter that had slam dunk references, which I know some people that are slam dunk fans were just like, oh my god, why did you do this scene? But like I do enjoy Roboco as a whole. I enjoy almost everything in Jump currently. Like I even find enjoyment to a degree in Candy Flurry. Not a whole lot, so I won't be that shaken up about it leaving, but like the only other one that I really don't like all that much would be Ayakashi Triangle, and that's just because the etchy stuff just is very overpowering of any other kind of plot in the
yeah,
series.
right.
So it's just kind of like, and like I will admit that I felt hit or miss on Neru for like the first couple chapters, but I've enjoyed the recent stuff. But
I feel like it's just starting to kind of find its direction. It took a
agreed.
while.
But it will be interesting to see whether or not like it's able to stick that going into chapters 11 through potentially 20, because
Right,
that
that
is
critical
going to
point.
be that critical point of, all right, are you going to stick around or not? And the same can be said about Red Hood. I have heard complaints about Red Hood and its pacing and whatnot from Japan. So it'll be very interesting to see ultimately what their reception for it is, especially when we get its first volume sales. Like I'm very curious as to what's going to happen. Um, but we are in a very contentious time, and stuff is going to be cut that has been running in the magazine for a while now. It's just a matter of seeing what goes. And like I know what is in the line of fire. Like
Hmm.
High School Family is in the line of fire. Magu-chan is, I would say even Roboco is. And then there's Undead Unluck after that. Um, Things could shake up after that point, but like it is in a contentious spot. Even Mission Yozakura Family could potentially end at any given time if they deem its sales to be stagnant. So I'm curious to see where it goes, and I think I think the jump metrics that we have here are going to be an important litmus test for that, especially if we're not going to be judging things purely on sales.
Right.
So I'm curious to see what happens. Um, and again, I hope that this does paint a clearer picture for people of where things stand outside of sales. It's again, it's not one of those things where it's a perfect oh, like this series was in 5th position last week and 7th this week, and it's gonna be 12th next week, so we got to average it out. No, like we can judge things based on promotion across the board, and I do think that this is a good picture of that. Whether this stays the same moving forward, you never know. Like, but I think it is a good test, and I am happy that I get to share this information with people, and I'm glad that you yourself have found interest in this, and in discussing it as well.
No, of course, because like I said at the beginning, this is like the perfect metric for everything inside Weekly Shonen Jump specifically. Like, um, I don't know if I've ever asked you, but this doesn't really translate to the Jump Plus stuff. Like,
Absolutely not. No. So
yeah,
with
like,
Jump Plus, uh that's strictly numbers based. That is
mhm.
strictly which series are getting the most clicks, and or which series are getting the most physical slash digital volumes bought. Um
Okay,
and
that makes
so
sense.
like Jump Plus does get series cut just like the physical magazine does. There are
Okay.
series that end in 20 or less chapters.
Mhm.
And there are series that go on for a long period of time. I don't know what their limits are in terms of how many series they want on their platform at a given time, but obviously it's a much bigger batch compared to the physical magazine.
Right.
But it does not follow the same metrics like we're seeing here, because on there it's purely a digital clicking kind of thing. I think I could be wrong on this. I think they're allowed to kind of put in color pages if they want. I don't know that they necessarily have quotas that they need to meet for it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, the only series that like consistently was getting color pages for the longest time was Kaiju number 8, and that was just
Mhm.
because every 3 chapters they would just have like some color one-off pages in between for like their break week. But
Yeah.
I don't know what their rules or whatnot are for color pages and color spreads. I know
Okay.
it's very different though. Um, it's just the big thing is that like we in the West get so few of the Jump Plus series compared to Japan. Like
Right.
we get like a fifth of them, if not less.
Mhm.
So that's a big thing. And obviously a lot of Jump Plus series have ended that we've never even touched. So yeah. I would guess though that um the metrics that we talked about would hold similar weight for other magazines. Um
Yeah, for sure.
I just haven't done anything with that because that information isn't as privy to us as the Jump stuff is. Just
Yeah.
because how mainstream Jump is in comparison.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that at least does it for all my thoughts. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention about anything in terms of the points? Any kind of thoughts, theories, questions, anything else that you have?
My only thoughts I want to close, or that I want to get out as we close, are, like I said, Elusive Samurai and Undead Unluck are my babies.
Mm-hmm.
Sakamoto Days, as you have helped me to nourish and develop a passion for, um, I don't worry about it at all based on its metrics right now. I'm just really, 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 really curious to see how those evolve and shift as it gets more chapters under its belt, because
Mm-hmm.
it is very early right now in the grand scheme of things. It's like, what, chapter 35 right now?
For Sakamoto Days,
Yeah.
I think it just hit 30 recently. I'm double checking that
See,
right
not
now.
even 35, 30. So it still has a fair bit to go. Um,
Oh no,
so,
it's 34. 34 was his most
okay, so
recent
I was
chapter.
close.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not concerned about that. I'm just really, really curious to see. Um, like maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, whether we're having the same conversation or if things change. But I'm not worried. Uh, the last thing I will say is I, although I would both like to see all new Jump series do well, I personally have an interest in Red Hood
Mm-hmm.
because I really, really, really liked Zip Man, and that was by a previous assistant of Horikoshi. So now, whenever I see a new series by this person that used to work for Horikoshi, I go, "Oh no!" but the reason
Yeah.
I'm not totally devastated by that is because that person went on to do a like prequel series or like spin-off series for Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we just don't get it.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's doing good. I don't know how good, but it's popular enough. Um, so I'm just glad that they got to do something. But I was very sad when Zipman had to go. So I'm like crossing my fingers that Red Hood is not just another Zipman.
No, I agree with you there. I am personally hoping for Red Hood success, especially since it was a one shot winner from this
Right.
past year. So like there are high hopes on it. I know it needs to clean up its art style a little bit, just because there are certain scenes and characters and whatnot that kind of get lost in each other, just because of how scratchy some things are. I will admit I was
Mhm.
not the I liked Zip Man, but I wasn't that upset to see it go, just because I wasn't a big fan of the main character. In all honesty, he was kind of generic
Yeah.
when you think about it. But I am hoping for Red Hood's success. I am personally hoping as well for Elusive Samurai, Undead Unluck, and Sakamoto's success. One thing that I hope helps them out is the fact that Undead Unluck is already publishing in English in the States for physical copies, and Sakamoto Days has gotten that green light for next
Nice.
year, which is great that it's 34 chapters in and has already been
I was
green
gonna say,
lighted for
yeah.
physical volumes in English. That's amazing. So I'd like to say that they are in the clear for some time. And Elusive Samurai, obviously, because like it's crushing it in the magazine and
Hmm.
it's crushing it in sales in Japan. Um, but it will be interesting, yes, in a year's time to see where they're at. I'd like to think that they're gonna do well. Or this might be a weird take. I think Sakamoto Days is going to do better than Undead Unluck, just based on current trajectories.
Yeah,
Sakamoto
I
had a
would have
much
to agree.
stronger start compared to Undead Unluck did in terms of sales and even
Hmm.
promotion. So I think Sakamoto Days, we won't have to worry about that as much in a year's time. But as I've mentioned with Undead Unluck, it could definitely be considered on the bubble, especially compared to other series that are just doing better than it,
Yeah,
new
right, for
or
sure.
old. So we'll just have to wait and see. I can only hope for the best for them, especially since I love Undead Unluck as well. It is one of my
Oh,
favorite
love it.
series in the magazine, as is Sakamoto Days. But yeah, we can only hope and wait and see. And uh, ideally, the metrics for them only continued to improve. I know at least for sales, Undead Unluck hasn't had any major changes for sales. Like again, they've kind of been keeping to that 50-ish thousand, if not more, sales. So it's not doing bad, but it's not growing per se. So we'll just have to wait and see.
All right.
All right. Well, I think then that does it for everything on my end. I will say at least for those that are interested in sales, the newest Jump volumes are currently out. To no one's surprise, My Hero Academia is the top seller right now, and Doctor Stone is number two. Mashal is in seventh. Elusive Samurai is in 12th. Blue Box is in 14th. Ayakashi Triangle 16th, and it drops down to 124 for Magu. So the Jump stuff in its first week are doing very well. especially for the newer series. So very curious to see how those end up for the month. But good times ahead for the stuff that's already selling well. But with that being said, as a closing, I do want to thank everyone that has been here through the podcast, an hour and 20 minutes in. And I also obviously want to thank my guest Ouji for being here. And I'm going to give you the floor so that you can give your plugs for anybody still listening.
So, of course, if you would like regular Dr. Stone content, then come to my channel. But I also occasionally plug other series that could use some love. I did Eden Zero. I did Keimono Jihen, which was a very underrated anime and manga. And this will probably come out after my video, but I am recently doing a video on why Spy Family is the perfect mess. So if that interests you, you should definitely check it out.
You're not wrong, but I do love Spy Family. You are, yep. Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I will definitely. That being said, I will have all the links to Ouji's stuff in the description. So please, if you are not subscribed already to him, give his stuff a look and give him that subscribe. And if you are somehow an hour and 20 minutes into this podcast and you're not subscribed to this channel already, like I am confused in every episode, please hit that subscribe button. But I mean, that being said, thank you for listening this far in. As always, happy to have everyone on for the Axel and Friends podcast. Another episode will be out next Friday. Just like every week, so stay tuned for who we have as our next guest and our next topic. But for now, my name is Axel Blaze, and yeah, if you are not reading Sakamoto Days already, read Sakamoto Days, because I'm going to continue to push that agenda, and I'm going to continue to push that color page agenda. But until next time, guys, see you later.